we are so very grateful to be here with you and to have some of your time and to just invite you into this journey with us of the four new questions for this year's Passover. Libby and Mushon, we want to meet you and we want to introduce you, the major gift of introducing you to our community. And some of us know a little bit about you and some of us not at all. So tell us where you're zooming in from today and tell us a little bit about how are you? How are you doing?
Uh, Hi, thank you so much, Shira, and thanks, Rabbi Amichai. Um, I'm Libby. I'm zooming in today from Bedside, Brooklyn. I'm an Israeli American activist and a member of the Lab Shul community. So thank you so much for including me today. Um, the work that I do is for the last 20 something years is to kind of adapt and translate Israeli realities of opposition to racism, to the occupation, to authoritarianism here to American audiences, and then also to translate and adapt American movement and political and Jewish realities back to the Israeli progressive left. Um, and over the years, I've found a lot of open doors, but I've also found a lot of stuckness in terms of anyone's ability to imagine to actually imagine a better future next year. The weight of the present and the weight of the past is so heavy on all of us, both with like intentional mechanisms to shut down our ability to imagine a truly better future, and also our own internalized systems for shutting that down out of self-protection. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing lately is looking at cultural vehicles that can help us get unstuck. And to your question of how am I, I'm terrible right now. It's been 6 months of like the worst, heaviest times that I can remember in my lifetime, that my parents can remember in their lifetimes. And I'm trying very hard, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more, like as we head towards Pesach, to find new ways of using the pain and terror that I'm feeling in my bones every day when I wake up as a template for how to really think clearly and feel clearly about a shared future. How, like, that pain and terror can actually be a source of deepened connection to other peoples, to our neighbors, um, in a realer and more visceral way than I think I've had to channel in the past. So thanks for the question, and that's how I am.
Mm.
Yeah,
Libby, thank you.
I definitely relate to that. Hi, I'm Mushon, Zer-Aviv. I'm connecting today from Tel Aviv. It's a beautiful, beautiful day in Tel Aviv. You know, it seems like the weather doesn't know about what is going on. And a bit about me, I'm a designer. And I'm always coming back to that title, as a designer, because I want to be able to design my environment. It's getting harder, and it seems like the tools that I've been using have not been delivering the results that I was designing for. Um, and and you know, I come back to the question of like, what have we not understood about the environment? What have we not understood about where we want to take it? And by environment, I mean both, you know, the physical environment, the, you know, the social environment, um, and about where we want to take this. It's not about only our imagination, but also how we work with imagination. Like how do we use the future? As an activist, I work with a Land for All, which is a peace initiative. We want to initiate peace. We still believe that there's room for that, and there have been so much cynicism over the past decades about that word, that there's so much work to be done. There has been so much work done to cancel the futures that we were hoping for. And you know, you mentioned you mentioned ideas of optimism. I'm not an optimist. I'm actually a pessimist. I don't think that it's going to get better, but I'm a hopeful pessimist, which means that I have hope and I demand of myself and of people around me to be able to see the hope, because the trajectory is not an optimistic one. You know, every year we say, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim habnuya. We don't actually spend enough time to think, what does it require of us? So it's kind of a shallow, optimistic statement. If we want to make it a hopeful statement, we need to break that down to, okay, you've been saying that every year. What are you going to do differently this year? And what do you mean by Yerushalayim habnuya? This year, I want to say L'shana haba le'Aza habnuya. And what would that require?
Tell us more. What does that mean? Can you translate that for our
Well,
community?
we are not the ones. We and I'm saying we from my Israeli collective, we are responsible for the destruction of Gaza. We're not, this year, we need to be responsible not for the building of Jerusalem, but for first of all, stop the destruction of Gaza. First of all. And then if we ever want to build Jerusalem, what would it require? Like if we look at our environment, and I'm using my tools as a designer. When I'm looking at the environment, like what needs to change in this environment to be able to start building? And the first thing that we need to start building is trust.
I mean, if I can say something, when Mushon talked about like the tools that I'm using aren't delivering the outcomes that I want, I very much relate to that. And one of the tools that I've been reaching for in cultural activism is futurism. And it's like the sense that if we can actually experience and imagine this better future, B'Shana Ba'a, next year or next 20 years, then that will help us get there. And one of the things that Mushon has warned of in his writings and also in conversations with me is like that there is this this dynamic that happens around futurist thinking, which absolves us of the practical and actually puts us in a deeper hole. And after I heard Mushon say that the first time, I started thinking about a set of like nostalgic iconic cultural pieces, like David Broza's Yeh Tov, or like the Shana Ba'a B'Yerushalayim from the Sayder, or I recently saw a Batsheva dance performance of 2019 where a woman is singing עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. And she's just like straight-faced singing it. And I sobbed my heart out because what it felt like to me is that in our tradition, in the Jewish collective and in the Israeli collective, it's like things get worse and we start praying about next year, a year that is completely unreachable. And the more we say it, the more out of reach it becomes. And so one of the challenges that Mushon has put to me and that I've like really internalized, maybe more than you intended it, is like, as we're imagining this better future, and if I'm looking at Israel-Palestine, which I'm always looking at with my heart and my eyes and my feet and my hands, if we're imagining a time in which separation and militarism is not the paradigm, but partnership and shared space and shared culture is the paradigm, then where can we see the saplings, like the seeds of that already in our environment now, so that it isn't עוד תראה, or יהיה טוב, or בשנה הבאה, but actually building from what is now, so that we're not skipping over all of that responsibility, all of that evidence towards some utopian future that we'll never reach, but actually looking at the past, the present, to reach this future of partnership and shared present as well.
Let me build on that quickly. So there's so much of the image, we talk about images of the future. There are so many images of the future that are built as a way of showing us what we don't have, right? And these images are, you know, the most popular images of the future that we actually spend a lot of time thinking about are dystopias, right? And often, you know, we think about 1984 or The Handmaid's Tale, and we think of these as iconic political statements and images of the future that are kind of warning signals. And indeed, they are. Like they show us like how worse it can get. But they do another thing. They emphasize the things that we have and we stand to lose. And in a way, dystopias function as this. I call it the reactionism of the future, like make the future present again, right? Like how can we keep what we have? Like just and in a way they're so powerful because we know what we have, and we know what we like about our lives and how it would be horrible to live without it. It's really easy to, you know, cognitive scientists have been talking about that for so long that it's so easy for us to imagine how we stand to lose something rather than stand to gain, right? And that and the flip side of that is this utopian images that we hardly, you know, we hardly really delve into. You know, we make these statements like L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim Avnuya, and we keep it at that, because there's something kind of static about there's something not exciting about oh, all our problems get solved and somehow we actually, you know, what excites me the most is to solve problems, to find new opportunities, to understand the environment differently, to move differently in the environment. It's not necessarily about that reaching that Yerushalayim Abnuya, but it's definitely about getting there, right? There's a quote that let me pull it up quickly, and hopefully it will be quick enough. But there's a quote that I keep coming back to, by Eduardo Galeano about utopia, and I do hope that I have it handy. Well, I'll try to remember it by heart, because oh yeah, maybe I found it. Yes. So she's on the horizon. I go 2 steps, she moves 2 steps away. I walk 10 steps, and the horizon runs 10 steps ahead. No matter how much I walk, I'll never reach her. What good is utopia? That's what. It's good for walking. And we should stop saying "Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim Habnuya" unless we try to understand, because it's not in Jerusalem. It's not in Jerusalem, right? It's a symbolic state of building, right? Of building what? And then what is the direction, and how do we start walking there now?
Yeah. Wow, Mushon, thank you for this, and Libby for yours. This is real, and as you're talking about being a hopeful pessimist. I'm thinking about Viktor Frankl's tragic optimist. I think between being a hopeful pessimist and a tragic optimist, somewhere there is our yearning. It's certainly an old Jewish trope, but a human trope of saying, I'm here, there's a part of me that's over there. How can it be the most optimistic, but also not being rose-eyed, but somewhere between the hopeful pessimist and the tragic optimist is, I think, where we are now finding ourselves so much more than ever. And I'm hearing the being aspirational, but being practical. Makes me think about a very short teaching, Talmudic, I believe, that if you are out there and you're planting a tree in a ti'ah, and you see the Mashiach is coming, the Messiah is arriving, finish planting, then go hug the Messiah. Right? So it's like Libby was saying, the seeds right now. Yes, utopia. Next year, Yerushalayim Habnuya, I'm thinking about the generations and generations of our ancestors who have said it, right? In good times and bad times, with the doors shut for fear of the others and with the windows wide open in different countries at different ages. I think Yerushalayim is always a metaphor. And now the challenge for our generation is it's not just a metaphor. It's a real city with major problems and so much to build, not physically necessarily, but from the ground up, a new vision. So I want to, in just a moment, ask you both, as you already have, to really imagine wherever you will be at Sayder or Sayders this year. And when you get to that question and get to reframe it, what are you going to say? L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, a sentence or two. I'm going to ask everyone else who's watching this to think the same. So we are practical at Sayder. This is like a practical exercise. Anita Diamond talks about Pesach as a exercise of collective optimism. I think this year maybe we'll call it an exercise in collective tragic optimism. But nevertheless, with an eye of Kadima. But if it's okay, I want to take I want to ask Mushon, if you don't mind, for just a few moments, tell us about Eretz Lekulam, about Elenfal, because I think if we're talking about real plants on the ground, brave and courageous and creative, that's one of them. And I know I don't know enough about it, and I'm sure others would be so honored to hear from you, who's one of the founding visionaries of it. What's there? Like, tell us more.
I'm not one of the founding visionaries of it, and I'm proud to say I'm not, because the way that I got convinced by the idea was through a project that I made that was quite literally trying to imagine, what are we going to build in Jerusalem, right? So in 2017, Shalev Moran and myself launched a project called Speculative Tourism, where we invited different authors from really different parts of Israel to imagine different futures for Jerusalem, and to write them and record them in the format of an audio tour that we actually conducted in the streets of Jerusalem, where we stood in the places where these futures may happen, and we heard them while our eyes were in the present and our ears were in the futures. And one of these futures was by Muhammad Beiruti and Meron Rappaport from A Land for All, when I was familiar with A Land for All, but still very, very skeptic. And that future took place in one of the most contested places in the city. It was in Silwan, the village of Silwan, or Ir David, and specifically the archaeological site in Silwan. And in the future that they described, this is still an archaeological site, but rather than being a place where Jews dig proofs for annexation, proofs to justify annexation, this becomes a shared archaeological site where both Jews and Arabs dig their shared histories together. I tear up again just to think about that being the Jerusalem that I would want to see. And I was convinced from that vision. And to expand on that, A Land for All doesn't give up on the two-state solution, but gives up on the concept of separation at the heart of the way we've been conducting it so far. So it's not about finding how to cut and slice this land. It's about thinking of how to share it, how to have two states, two independent states with the right of self-determination in the same land that we call our home. And we call all of it our home. Like, it's not a surprise that both pro-Palestinians and pro-Israelis are using the same app. I'm a map maker, that's what I do. And I've been looking at this map since I was a kid, trying to figure out, like, where is my home? Where is this place that I'm supposed to say it is mine? And half of my family are of settlers, and the other half is mixed. And specifically this Passover, we're going to be with my cousin in Neve Shalom, right? The very other side of the family, and you know, we're going to have these gestures of like Neve Shalom is a small capsule of what would it look like to live together, and to still maintain the fact that we're different, and we have different identities and different parts to play in our communities. I think, you know, unlike the hopes of many in the world, more than actually in Israel and Palestine, many in the world really hope to make Israel and Palestine the forefront of post-nationalism. You know, that sounds beautiful, but this is another one of these futures that are hanging over there as here's another thing that we have no idea, and we are not even committed in any way to step towards. No, we need to bring future to us, and we need to start walking. So, and this is not even a compromise. A land for all means that Israelis and Palestinians will have each will have their own state, but they will not be kicked out of their homes. They will not have to continue living in fear. The only thing that we built in Jerusalem is walls. Like this is what the thing that we mean by Yerushalayim Abnuya. This and this is what we even meant by the two-state solution, right? More and more and more separation, more and more and more walls. No, building what we need to build is trust, and that would and that is something to be hopeful for, and that's what we're trying to advance with the Land for All.
Wow, Mushon, toda. Thank you. I think you're getting us into this, the closing part of this conversation about concrete ways of say L'Shana Ba'ah. I just want to share with you briefly that Silwan is contested, ancient, the core of Jerusalem, and so much of that area is from that neighborhood. I just came back from Israel Palestine last week, and I'm staying in Jerusalem, and there's a new bridge that was erected over Gei Ben Hinnom, over Silwan, by the Jerusalem municipality from Abu Tor to Mount Zion. And it's like a bridge between east and west and overlooking Silwan. And it's exactly what a bridge should be and exactly what a bridge is not, right? It is a tourist attraction to really celebrate one side and doesn't address the other, and it's overlooking this whole valley, but it doesn't serve the locals, and it's such a symbol of the irony, the bridges we want to build, the trust we want to build, the new vistas we want to build, and the reality of what is now. So from this place of tragic optimism, your Seder in Neve Shalom, Libby, your Seder's in Tel Aviv, New
No,
York?
upstate New York.
Upstate New York. So I want to invite you both to really share with us based on this really heart-moving conversation and dare I say, seeds of hope. What's your vision? What will you share or invite your people at Seder to think of next year, a year from now? Give us a vision. What are you seeing? What do you want? Forget reality for a moment. Libby, wanna go there?
Yes, I wish I could forget reality even for a moment. I think when I heard Mushon say that his Seder, and this is the second time he's told me that the Seder is going to be in Neve Shalom, Wahat al Salam. Oasis of Peace, I think is the name in English. In my years of activism, I have had a big change of heart, and it's connected to exactly what we're talking about, and it's connected to what I want to bring to my Seder this year. I used to think that these kind of like ex-territorias that we have in Israel Palestine, these oases of peace that are non-representative of the actual political or spatial reality, but exist. I used to think of it as like the soft core. And I used to think that the hardcore was when I was protesting and breathing tear gas and facing off with settlers and soldiers for what's right. And over the years, I've come to see these oases of peace as the most radical expression of the world that we want, as the most radical expression of activism. After October 7th, and I think I've told you this before, Amichai, on October 7th, the first people that texted me, like the way I found out what was going on was two Palestinian friends texting me to find out if my nieces were alive. They live in Tel Aviv. So one of my friends, Isa in Hebron, and one Tamil in Lod, both were like among the first in the first half hour of me waking up to this reality of October 7th. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I have these friends. And then as the months have gone on and the conversations have gotten harder between people, and even in very close relationships of many years, and especially between Israelis and Palestinians and between Jews and Arabs, I've had some very deep conversations with Palestinian friends where we kind of, in the very personal, promised each other that we wouldn't leave each other. Like, this is hard. We don't know where it's going, but we're not leaving each other. And then I like hang up the phone and go back to work. And now, as we go towards Passover and as as we're having this conversation, it to me doesn't feel like a random thing or like a kind of cute anecdote that I'll be talking to my Palestinian friends on that day, as I do every day, and that Mushon will be doing the Sayder in Neve Shalom, Wahat al Salam, Oasis of Peace, because in order to reach the shared future that Land for All is talking about, that I'm working towards, we actually have to practice it every day. We have to be in that reality now and keep ourselves open to being in that ex territoria now, while it's only an ex territoria, so that it can become the guiding principle. And if we hang back from that this year and say it's too hard now is the time to circle the wagons, just me and other people who are exactly like me, because I'm in too much pain and I'm too scared. And so, hey, Tamer, that's all good. Let's talk next year. We'll never get there. It's a practice. It's something you've taught me, Amichai, about our spirituality. Like, you show up. It's a bad day, you still show up. You practice it, and then it becomes a spiritual reality. And so too with this politic, we have to practice it, and we have to start practicing it not tomorrow, yesterday. ואז יהיה טוב, ואז נגיע לשנה הבאה, through practice. And so, Chag Sameach to you in Neve Shalom, that's actually like a Hagshama Tzmit, like it's a self-realization of the actual work that you're doing. And that's what I would bring to my Seder. Let's figure out how we practice it now so that it becomes our reality.
So I'll build on that, and inspired by the way you framed it. I'll still trying to say, I'll take it back to the other part of my family, the part that lives in Karnei Shomron, in a bunch of other, hills that have names that they just thought about recently, right? And I would say I would want to bring Neve Shalom there. Because Neve Shalom should not be the anomaly. And I can tell you on a hopeful note, I met with one of my cousins from the other side of the family, where it's really a bad idea to even start talking about politics. And of course, we immediately started talking about politics. And it was after a couple of weeks after October 7th, he was in uniform. And at some point I told him, Ori, you have to understand, I'm not trying to kick you out of your home. I'm not trying to kick you out of your home. I am fighting for something different, something that allows you to acknowledge the connection that you have to this land, even if it's different than mine, even if my connection is mainly to Tel Aviv, right? I acknowledge the fact that you have a spiritual connection to this land, and it should not be something that requires you to cancel somebody else's deep connection to this land. And we did an event recently, an online event, and the title we used is that war is the greatest failure of the imagination. I think what we have now is a failure of the imagination. And a failure of the imagination is not only about imagining, something nice to say every year and not mean it. It's about imagining how do we navigate that very, very treacherous terrain and keep navigating and keep walking.
Amen.
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 Haverot, Haverim, friends, I'm so moved by this, by the walking, by the reminder that hope is a muscle, that we get to create and plant oases of peace with this work.
Thinking of seeds of trust also, beyond seeds of hope.
Yeah. And that on Friday nights, we sang, Shira and I just did Kabbalat Shabbat, our Sabbath Queen ritual here in New York, and we sing from Lecha Dodi, go, walk, lover, towards the vision of love, Sof Maaseh B'Machshava Tchila. The actions begin with our thoughts. These are the seeds of trust and rebuilding a future that we want to be in a year from now, that we want to start building right now. So many ways to specify these visions. I know those will emerge as we continue talking this evening, as all of us take this into Sayder and beyond Sayder, into many, many nights and days of liberation. We want to thank you, both of you, for doing what you're doing with A Land for All, and just by being there in Tel Aviv, Mushon, and doing everything you are to design reality better. And Libby, for your tireless work with Israel Fund and with Albi and with so many other ways of seeing the visions through day by day.
And thank you both.
You guys.
Thank you, Rabbi, for holding us all, not just during this time, but always, and for holding me in this time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Happy holiday.
Or something.
שנה הזאת, הכי בשלום שאפשר. השנה הבאה, all the better that we can co-create.
Keep walking.
Keep walking. We walk together.
We walk together. תודה. חג חירות ואהבה. להתראות.